everyone, and welcome to the Empowering Women podcast. This is the fourth and final episode of our Sisters in STEM series. We've had such wonderful, diverse guests on the podcast to learn from, and we were going to continue and end that trend today with someone focused on women in tech. And I first met today's guest at a speakers retreat earlier this year, and I just loved her message about women thriving in tech. And I was pulled in immediately by her energy and passion. So Denise Musselwhite was a chief information officer. She's now turned executive leadership coach and consultant, and she's dedicated to helping professionals in tech succeed as industry leaders. So with more than 2 decades of experience in legal, nonprofit, and education, she brings a wealth of knowledge and passion for creating change. As a trailblazer, I know that she sees the landscape today and the persistent lack of representation and diversity at the top levels of organization as a critical issue. And this underrepresentation, as we all know, often leads to feelings of isolation and a lack of role models who share those similar backgrounds and experiences. And she is on a mission to change it and to address it. Welcome, Denise, to the podcast.
Hi, Shannon, and everybody who's listening. I'm so glad to be here. I'm just humbled enough to be a guest on your podcast. I listen and I love it, and it's really empowering to the space with you. So thanks.
Absolutely. We're excited that you're here. I haven't hit the tech industry yet, so today we're going to take a good look at that. And it is so wonderful to see you again. As my readers know, or listeners know, I often forget that I'm talking. So that's probably what's going to happen today. They also know that where I love to start is to share your story. So tell us a little bit more about your journey about becoming a chief information officer and a few lessons that stick out along the way.
For me, my journey into technology started when I was a kid. My parents are immigrants to the United States. They're Puerto Rican and Dominican. I'm a first generation American. They had me and my siblings in Bronx, New York, and we lived there till I was about 10 years old. My parents were entrepreneurs themselves. They did not go to college, and they spent their working lives building a auto repair business. Funny little story is that their first auto repair shop in Bronx, New York, which was a mobile service station, was called Denise's Service Station.
I heard the first story, but I didn't know that you were actually the namesake. That's awesome.
Yes, they named their first business after me as their oldest child, which was I didn't realize how heavy of a burden that was when I was just toddling around that repair shop. But fast forward to when I was 10, they moved us to Orlando, Florida, in pursuit of more family-friendly environment to raise their 3 kids. And I started middle school, and my dad bought his first computerized diagnostic machine because back in the mid 80s, cars got more complicated and they had onboard computers for the first time.
Right.
And he needed to buy this device to diagnose the repair codes, something that he had no experience with, something that he didn't really understand. And he enlisted me, his middle school daughter, after school to translate the manual of that diagnostic computer to him and his mechanic so that they could repair the error codes. That's where my technology interest and career started, in my dad's repair shop, after school, in middle school, and the rest is history. I took jobs at law firms when I was in high school, backing up all of the computers for the attorneys and restoring their files when no one in that law firm understood what a backup was.
Yeah, they probably all backed away from their computer, put their hands up and said, "Hey, Denise, can you come deal with this?"
Yes, it was this giant box that I would move from office to office to back up their computers. And I did that in high school. And then I started working in a law firm, decided I was going to be an attorney, and went to get a degree in legal studies, and quickly realized that my superpower and my strength was in translating technical concepts. So I went back to school and got my degree in technology management from the University of Central Florida. Go Knights! here in Orlando, and have been very successful as one of the few women in that space, and landed for a long time in education technology in schools.
That is just fantastic. And to your point, leading in that space, and we're going to get into this a little bit later today, is unusual. And I think that's what drew me to you and the speakers retreat, to stand in that space that's very male populated and kind of letting your voice be heard, even when maybe it wasn't quite as appreciated as it should have been.
Right. It was definitely unique.
Yeah, it was definitely unique. Well, speaking of unique, the one thing that I've been surprised at, all four of our guests in this series have been founders. And you started T.H.R.I.V.E, I believe, in 2022. So we're at your 2-year anniversary, which is exciting. Kind of what drove you to kind of take that next crazy step in your life? Like, I'm curious, like, what was in your brain and how has that founder's mentality benefited you?
You know, I've always had a little bug for entrepreneurship, having seen my parents own their own business and these auto repair shops, and they were both entrepreneurs. They didn't call themselves entrepreneurs. They were small business owners. They didn't really have the education to back up the success that they had, but their resilience and what they did in order to provide for our family was remarkable to me. They also sacrificed a lot. So throughout my entire career in technology management, I always had a side gig. I was always doing consulting projects on the side. I was always speaking at conferences. I was always dipping my toe into something that would challenge me more than the role that I was in, because I just had an energy for entrepreneurship. And the pandemic kind of changed my perspective on the rest of my life, just like it did for many, many other people. During the pandemic, I was finishing up my master's degree in leadership, and I wrote my thesis about the barriers that hold women back in STEM fields. When I did that research and studied that, the lack, frankly, of data around that topic, but the data that was available was that the pandemic was going to actually move us backwards because of the challenges that women faced uniquely during the pandemic with their kids home and their families working, you know, their need to work from home more, and the way that the world changed. I felt so on fire about not letting that happen and making an impact that I started to strategically plan for my exit from a very successful 25-plus-year career as a technology leader, leaving behind a 6-figure role. This wasn't something I decided overnight. It took me about 3 years of planning to really pull the trigger on resigning my role very positively. It was a very, very successful exit in that I loved where I worked. I left at a high point, and that meant a lot to me. I decided at that point, after working with a coach, that I needed to take a break, and somehow figured out how to resource a sabbatical. And I took 6 months off to get clear about what I wanted to do. And during that 6-month sabbatical, of course, I would decide to take a course at Harvard around executive coaching to figure out what this was all about, because, you know, that's what people do on sabbaticals, is they take courses.
I'm just as weird, Denise. So I recently took a vacation, and my listeners are going to think I'm nuts. I actually took the vacation and I went to the Work Human HR conference because I'm very passionate about human-centric leadership. So
Okay.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I took a vacation to go to a conference. So we're just weird.
Courses and classes at Harvard was on my bucket list. And
Okay.
when you're on a sabbatical, sometimes you think about that. And I was like, you know what? This is accessible. I can go on site and take some professional growth and development that has nothing to do with a job that I currently have, just to learn. And while I was at that course getting certified, I learned so much about the field of executive leadership development. I learned so much about myself. And I also felt great affirmation from 20, 25-year seasoned executive coaches that I was in the right space.
Oh, that's awesome.
And because of that experience, I decided to just throw caution to the wind and say, you know what? I want to make a difference by giving back to technology, the industry. I'm going to help accelerate development for women and people of color in the tech industry so that they don't have to go through some of the challenges that I myself faced as a result of being one of the only Latinas in the room. And that's what I did. And I built T.H.R.I.V.E, and here I am, year 2. It's very unusual for an entrepreneur or business to be profitable in year 2, and I am. So I'm really
congratulations.
Proud of that.
Woohoo!
Really
I'm gonna
proud
clap.
of that.
Hopefully
I
they can hear my clap.
planned how I would do the business, that I would work with only clients who really loved the mission of T.H.R.I.V.E, and that has been true. I've been really, really centered on who I want to serve, and I serve them well, and they're thrilled. And I am just so proud of it.
Well, I'm so proud of you. I think something else you said that I think is really important. Sometimes people think, sometimes it is I'm just going to do this life decision and then boom, and I make the decision. But I think for so many people, it's exactly the story you described. Like the bug hits you. COVID obviously was impetuous for you, but then the planning starts. Like it's often protracted planning, I think, that take people into that. Would you agree based on your communities that you serve?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the conversations that I'm having today are with other founders who decided that the barriers that they were experiencing themselves in corporate America or in fixed and more traditional W-2 roles just didn't fit into the kind of whole life experience that they wanted to have as a career. And they decided to take a leap of faith and bet on themselves for creating this more well-rounded life. Because our work, at least for me, my work was never something that was on the side. It was part of my identity and part of my whole life. I love technology that much, and I loved working with people that much, that it was never this like obligation I had. It was more of a pouring out of a passion. And more people want that. And so much of traditional work doesn't fill that bucket, that some of us decide that we're going to take the leap of faith and bet on ourselves to try to create it so that we have more control over the way that we engage professionally.
I think that's so true. And get spending a couple of days with you, you were all in. So that does not surprise me that you were all in. So I would also give a shout out here. We're going to get a little bit in deeper, but one of the things Denise and I were talking about before we hit the record button is getting a leadership coach. So Denise is obviously, if you're in the tech industry and you're listening to this, highly encourage you. I'll put her link in the show notes. Reach out to her, see if she can help you on your journey. If you're not, I have a leadership coach, so I would encourage anybody to go do that and invest in yourself that way. All right. So speaking of your passion, I stole this off your LinkedIn page that you are a liberator of tech pros and organizations who want to fully unleash their potential to thrive. So in doing that, like what positive changes have you seen for marginalized groups in the tech industry?
Oh my gosh. So so much evidence. I have so many receipts.
That's awesome.
The impact that these amazing people see as a result of investing in themselves through their employers. Most of my clients engage with me because their employers sponsor their work with me. And that's really like one of the signs of a great employer, is that they're willing to invest in you in a way that speaks to you. They're just not, it's not like just like telling you what your professional development should be, but instead allowing for the individual to choose. So I think that the thing that resonates with me the most, that I see as a common thread, is a deeper clarity about who they are themselves as a leader, moving away from what their employer or their supervisors have told them about themselves, but instead them internalizing and studying who they actually are as a leader and where the gaps are that they need filled in order to feel like their lives are full, not just their work. So just want to say that again. We as human beings want to feel satisfied in our lives more holistically than just in our work. And to do that, relying on your employer to fill the gap for you about what it means for you to be an employee and also live a good life is too much for them. Most employers can't deliver success there. They're focused on the KPIs and the goals that their organization needs. It's on you, the individual, to fill the rest of the gap. So the common theme here is an individual making the decision that they don't want to just live like the default life, the default work life that they get if they just do what their employer says they're good at, but instead go after what they see as gaps themselves and then start filling those empty buckets.
Yeah, I really love that because it forces you to say, who am I?
Who am I?
Versus like Denise, you telling me who I am, right? Or vice versa, right? It's who am I? And it kind of helps when the imposter syndrome creeps up. Especially if you take a growth opportunity of any sort, that's going to show up.
And for women, especially in male dominated industries, we really rely on the messaging that we get from supervisors and organizations to define who we are. And in so many cases, the way that they define who we are as leaders and the way that we really are don't align. And that creates friction that then manifests in burnout, a feeling undervalued. You feel underestimated by your employer. You may not feel recognized for the work that you do. All of those feelings are because you haven't been able to define for yourself what success is.
Wow. And you're waiting on, that's very profound. I hope people are writing this down because we often let other people define what success looks like for us.
So I am just when I say I'm the liberator, it's because I provide the framework to help you uncover who that is so that now you can create the strategic plan to implement, right? Because that's what I've been doing my whole career. So I created the Thrive operating system as a framework.
Yep.
So that individuals that I work with can go through this redefinition of who they are and empowering them to create their unique strategic plan.
Well, that was a question or so down, but we're going to go to that because it's a good transition. Just give us a teaser, like what is the framework and maybe just a little teaser of what some of it is. I want folks to like get an idea of what it is and then obviously encourage them to reach out to you to help them work through the details.
So the Thrive operating system is a six-step framework that I developed to help my clients move through the various stages of uncovering who they are transparently. The number one step is transparent assessment to really uncover who you are as your unique leadership self. With every single client I work with, I use an assessment tool and a variety of assessment tools to uncover that. And they're psychometrically, scientifically validated so that we can get to that quickly. And then we start tackling the other 5 steps, which is harnessing what you have now uncovered as your top strengths, and then really applying them. And the third letter is R, excuse me, for reclaiming your power. So now that you know who you are, now that you understand what your strengths are, and also the things that derail you, how are you going to shift, adjust, and recalibrate to be more in your strength areas and to diffuse some of them? And after we get a chance to do that, we move into influence and relational savvy. How are you using this to talk about yourself? How do you voice your vision, which is and then finally, we engage and execute all of the various steps so that you can create new habits and they become more operationalized and they're just not like this one thing. It just becomes this new version of yourself. And that's why I call it an operating system. You know how when we update a system, we go to the next version? It's exactly what I'm helping people do. They're going to the next version of themselves.
Yeah, I love that you start with the transparent understanding of yourself, though. Because if you don't understand that, then no offense, you can probably throw the rest of the framework out the window, right? Because
Yeah.
that really comes from the willingness to sit with yourself and honestly absorb like who you are or maybe who you want to be. And you're not there yet. And it sort of shuts off the rest of the world noise that we were talking about.
Yeah. When you're clear on who you are, all kinds of stuff happens. It just really just is like you can't unsee it anymore.
You can't.
It's like, oh my God, I see it there. I see it there. I see it there. And then when
That's
you're
who
not,
she is.
that's who she is. And then when you see your derailers, you really start to notice them clearly and you can tamp them down. The things that derail you from achieving success, whatever success means for you. It could be a promotion for some people. It could be exiting a role. It could be planning a succession out of a role. It really depends. One of the main things that I want to share with you, and you asked me this before, and I don't know that I really answered it, is what is the common thread between people? Most of the clients that I work in are in some kind of transition. They're either
interesting. Say more about that.
moving into a new role because they got promoted. They're exiting a role because they're succession planning because they're going to take a different direction. They started a new business or company and they are trying to get to this new version of themselves who now is a CEO versus just a technology individual. They may have been an individual contributor and now they're a people manager. Everybody has some transition that they're going through.
That's interesting. And I would really think, having done transitions myself, it really helps to be anchored because you're sort of in this rocky wave and you're like, "Ooh, this doesn't feel good." And right. And if you start listening to too many external voices, then you might like probably steer on the wrong course a little bit because you're letting other people influence your path.
Yes. Yes to that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. The other one you said, I missed the letter, but was about storytelling. So I think,
voicing your vision.
yeah. Can you say more about that one?
So in the framework, the voicing your vision step is an encouragement, a challenge to people to record themselves on audio, giving a TED talk that is for them.
Oh God, that's giving me
They don't
hives
need
thinking
to,
about it.
Yeah, they don't need to share with anybody. But if you were going to give a TED talk about what you've learned about yourself for 8 minutes, what would you say? And then I encourage them to script it out. And then they can record it on Zoom, just like we're doing, or they can just record the audio. And then I encourage them to listen back to what they say about this new version. And it's just eye-opening for people. And anybody who's listening can do this. You don't need my course for this, right? You can.
Yeah, and I do public speaking, but I'm thinking about it. This is actually terrifying me to really stand like you and I are doing, but stare at a screen and literally do an 8-ish minute TED talk on yourself and what you've learned about yourself. So to be honest, I really like talking about myself. So that's really like,
which is a barrier for women in tech specifically. If anybody working in a male-dominated industry, the fact that we are ashamed to talk about our successes and about ourselves holds us back. It's like a new muscle you have to strengthen. We really need to get comfortable talking about why we've achieved success and how and what our unique characteristics are. So that's what the TED talk is.
I've already got some gold nuggets. I can't take notes right now, but they're mentally up there. I'm so obviously you've talked about how you've helped them achieve success. What barriers do you see, especially for women and women of color in the tech field?
Well, there's systemic barriers that are outside of their control, right? The ones that exist because the systems of leadership were created with not you and me, right? They were created for different people. So us trying to kind of fit in to systems that weren't really designed with women in mind. So that's the thing that's not in their control. And then the thing that is in their control, that is one of the top things that I work with people on, is confidence, self-assurance, the ability to reflect on the evidence that they have had success. That is really a big, huge challenge for people. They don't take stock of what they've already accomplished. And I know that this is going to resonate with so many people in the audience.
It is.
Women are always looking for how they're not ready instead of how they are ready. So we're quick to go, oh, I need to take another course, or I need to get another degree, or I need to be more prepared. Yeah. If we actually take stock of how prepared we are, we're more prepared than almost everybody else in the room.
And I will say I've fallen victim to this. I'm falling victim to it as we speak, and something that's going on at work. But I think I've fallen victim to this multiple times. You think I'd have learned by now? I do catch myself faster than I used to, but yep.
So we just over prepare. We are ready. We've done the work. If you're in a leadership role in a male dominant space right now, you've done more than everybody else already. Because you've had to overcome challenges and barriers that other people in that space haven't. You're already ready. You don't need another certification. I promise.
Yeah, we love to add some letters after our name, right? It's like alphabet soup is our name and then a bunch of alphabet letters. I totally agree. Any other barriers
I have
you've
clients
seen?
who are PhD level clients, and they're asking me like, what certification do you think that I should get? And I'm like, you have a PhD. You're there. Why is it that you need to get the other thing? It's like a delay. You just delay success.
Yeah, and maybe some of it, to your point, now I'm thinking as you're talking, is out of fear because we're afraid of what that next leap looks like.
Yeah, and we want to be like 150% ready when really science tells us we really just need to be 50% ready for the role, and that we can fill in the rest with growth. You don't have to grow for the role before you get there.
I love that. Well, I'm going to pivot on you for the last two questions. I think allies are so important in any journey. I know they've been important in mine. How have they helped you in your journey, both as a CIO and as well as a founder?
Oh my gosh, I would not be on this podcast with you or having success in my business or even have had success as a CIO without really, really strong allies who saw something in me and who leaned into what they saw and challenged me to step away from comfort. Those allies who were really honest with me, who challenged me and said, hey, you're made for more than this and you're not going after it. You need to go after it, changed my life. I remember them in high school. I can talk about my teacher in business operations class. Her name was Nancy Gallion. She saw in me an aptitude for technology that was unique. And she empowered me she literally said, you should join this program called DECA so that you can leave school to go work and apply the strength that you have because you're already done with your coursework. You don't need to sit in this high school. You know, you've already done this. Go do that now. And because of the connections that she helped me create in high school, I got that job at the law firm that put me on a different path. My parents could not have navigated that.
Interesting.
In college, professors who took the extra time to write on my papers that they saw something in me that was unique. They literally would write it in remember in the olden days where teachers would write in red pen? Yeah. They would write on there, you are different in a way that is unique. You must stay in this field. They encouraged me. And these are male professors, right? Because there were no women professors in the degree program that I was in technology in the 90s, right? And I remember leaders that I worked for along the way who would invest in me and would literally tell me, you've outgrown this job. It's time for you to go to the next one. And even if that makes you have to leave our organization, you need to go and seek your future. All these people invested in me and told me the truth. And they pushed me because as a child of immigrants, we tend to lean towards stability and safety. And I would have stayed in a job if I hadn't had their encouragement, because I was afraid that I wouldn't have what I needed to succeed. They pushed me.
I never thought about the immigrant aspect of that, but I could really, outsider, obviously not understanding, but I can see how that might be an extra barrier.
Yeah. Your parents, as an immigrant, they typically are trying to create stability and safety because they didn't experience that themselves. So they kind of like, you have to get the job and you have to stay there for this long and you have to be good at it. And I had leaders who would see something in me and say, you've got to go for that promotion. You've got to apply for that other thing. And I did, and it would work. So without their encouragement, I wouldn't be here.
Interesting. I'm going to give a shout out to a gentleman by the name of Mark Knight. I hope he listens to this. If I will make sure he listens to it, I'll forward it to him. He was a mentor to me as part of a leadership program. And the thing that he said to me still resonates today, which is, you're not thinking big enough.
I have somebody just like that. His name was George Urquiola. He was my supervisor at a tech company when I was in college. And he made it his job to make sure that I landed in a wonderful position when I graduated. And because of him, he set me on this path of leadership that I can never repay. And it's because he took an interest in me. And I must say, he was another Latino.
Oh, fantastic.
And I don't, I'm making the assumption that he helped me up because he saw a Latina woman in tech, which is a unicorn.
Yeah, I was gonna say much less women, but a Latina woman in tech, you really are probably a unicorn.
Yeah, right. Back then it was nobody. And he took an interest and really, really helped me make connections and empowered me to apply for a position that I felt unqualified for. And it turned out to be my first technology management position for a very large law firm in Central Florida that had offices all over the state. When I was 24 years old, I was already a technology manager, leading technology management for an entire organization.
Oh, that is crazy, Denise.
And I
like this guy already, and I haven't met him.
I killed it at 24.
Well, I'm not surprised. Well, the little bit I've had a chance to spend time with you, I'm not surprised. That doesn't surprise me at all.
But
I will say,
he could have just kept me there, helping his company succeed, but instead he sent me somewhere else where he thought I could make more.
I love that story. I hope he listens to the podcast.
I hope so too. I'll share it with him.
Speaking of which, I want to encourage, I would guess the majority of my listeners are female, but I would encourage you, if you're a male listener, please pass this along. And the challenge to all my female listeners is, if you have an ally who's made a difference in your life, tell them, for one. And then two, I would love it if you'd share this podcast with them, because I think it's so important as we try to achieve gender equity in STEM. All right, I have one weird question left for you.
Weird question. Oh boy.
Well, obviously artificial intelligence has been in play and growing and changing for some time, but it's obviously all the rage right now. So I can't have a tech person on here and not ask, what role do you think women play in the future of artificial intelligence?
Oh, I think that we're in a of designing ethical systems that are empowering us to be better human beings. And that if we're not having that conversation really in the conversation about artificial's impact, then we're missing an opportunity. That every single woman who's listening to this should be talking about artificial intelligence and the way that it changes the work that we do. And if you're not having the conversation or trying the tool, you're missing an opportunity. And you know how everybody's kind of afraid of it? Like, oh, it's going to replace us. It's definitely going to replace the people who don't know how to use it.
Yeah, it will.
So that's my challenge, is figure out how to use it. I'm going to shout out an organization called MIA, Mission Impact Academy, that is educating non-technical women on how to leverage AI. They are changing the game on helping women upskill in the area of AI. And I encourage every listener to go there and find out more. If you're non-technical and you need to get like a fast track on artificial intelligence, MIA is your partner there.
All right, I will find that link and put it in the show notes for the listeners. So I was gonna. I'm lied. I'm asking 2 more questions. Anything coming up with Tech and Thrive you want to share with our
Oh,
audience? Like any like programs or things that you're launching or really proud of that you're focused on this year?
yes, I have just launched a Teams That Thrive service. So I'm working with tech teams on teaming around emotional intelligence, communication, getting clear about who they are as a team, less technical, more people, because research is showing us that when mixed generations work together, they're really having a hard time with this interpersonal development. So I have an offer that helps teams do that better. So if you're a tech team or work as part of a team, reach out to me and I'll tell you more about that offer. The other thing is every single person listening to your podcast is going to can get a free copy of the Embracing Your New Unique Drivers chapter and worksheet so that you can uncover what your strengths are. And that's free to everyone who wants it. And I'll send to you the way that they can get it.
Awesome. That is fantastic news.
And I always have a Thrive quiz out there. It's on my website.
Okay, perfect.
Techthrive.me. There's a banner on my website, techthrive.me. And that quiz helps you assess your leadership and gives you a score on where you need to be working.
I think I need to go take that myself. All right. Well, I'm going to go to my final question. What piece of advice or a quote would you like to leave our listeners with?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask this, and it's so hard for me. I am going to say that my advice is don't wait for someone else to create your future.
That's powerful.
You're the leader there. You are the CEO of your future, and you need to create it. Don't wait. Your employer, your supervisor, your leader, they're not going to do it for you. You are. So get to it.
Yeah, I used to say it's me incorporated and you are the CEO and you need to get on that, to your point.
Yeah. Don't wait for someone else to create your future. That's it.
Oh, that is powerful. Well, I can't get any better than that, Denise. Thank you so much, Denise. It's been wonderful to spend the time with you as always. Our listeners are incredibly grateful to spend a little bit of a time with you. So thank you so much for joining us.
It's been my honor and privilege. You're awesome at this. It was like just having a conversation. I wish we were in person together. And,
I know.
But I look forward to seeing you in person.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, guys, for listening. I will see you again in the next episode. Bye, everybody.